Hi, and welcome to another edition of Leading and Growing Your Real Estate Business. This is Coach James Short, and welcome to another episode. I am excited and honored to have our next guest with us live today, Michael Skinner from Savvy Spaces. Well, all the way from California, USA, dude. So excited. So what is Savvy Spaces? So Savvy Spaces is comprised of a small team of hospitality professionals dedicated to outstanding service and results that speak for themselves. With decades of combined experience across various segments of the industry, they channel their knowledge and resources to provide unparalleled quality both to the guests and to owners. It's an honor and a privilege to have him today. We're gonna unpack so much in today's episode. You know, we're coming out of certain interesting times, so to speak. We're just having a quick chat about that before. But I want to find out from Michael a little bit around what he's doing and what he's up to with Savvy Spaces and his journey on how he got there and also through these times, how he's been dealing with himself, his business, through these interesting times over this COVID-19. So, Michael, it's an honor and a privilege to have you on the show today.
Yes, great to be here. I'm really excited. Thanks for having me.
Mate, let's talk about pre-COVID for a little bit. Let's talk about, you had the business up and running. It was going great guns. How did you get into the space that you got into, and share us a little bit about the space that you're in?
Yeah, just for a little context, the business that we're in is maximizing the yield, minimizing waste. And so, we find spaces that don't get used a lot, and we try our best to try and populate those spaces and get the most use out of them. We do that mostly in the terms of real estate and property management. So we specialize in short-term rentals. Airbnb is our bread and butter. And so obviously, Airbnb kind of took the spotlight at the beginning of the year, getting ready to IPO. And after COVID kind of blew up on the verge of that, it took a whole nother turn that nobody was expecting. And so that kind of became an earthquake under the foundation of the industry of property management, of Airbnb, short-term rentals, sharing economy, the whole thing. So it really tested a lot of people. We've seen a lot of changes come out of it, of course, as it should, but also, we've seen how people start off before the industry and what happens on the other side of the pandemic. And it's just amazing to see the large spectrum of different kind of results that people come out with.
Hey, so how did you get into this shared economy, short-term rental property management industry gigs business, so to speak? Because it's a great niche, right? It's such a great there's so much need for it. How did you get into it?
Yeah, my background's in hospitality, so I have this very big passion for service, especially in hotels, restaurants. I have a large background in restaurants, and so that really brings the customer service out of me. I feel like the hotel industry, and in particular the short-term rental industry, is a platform to give people not only a way to enjoy their vacations, but to kind of escape what their normal is. And before this call, we were talking about the definition of normal, and showing people a glimpse of what that new normal could be is why I'm so in it. It's showing them the other side.
So true. And I think, there's a huge lesson for the real estate industry that can be learnt from the hospitality industry. That's that lovely S word of service, of not just lip service, but really that care, really that next level of service. And I think you've hit the nail right on the head, where it's looking at how can you provide more, be more, give more, rather than just here's the keys, see you later. It's like really creating that client, the customer journey, and providing that, like what you do, like in the hotels, you get exceptional service. So why shouldn't that be across the real estate space as well?
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that What was interesting is when I first got into business, coming from the hospitality background, I was really focused on that guest service side and like making it all about the guest and like making sure we're getting 5-star reviews and everyone's having a seamless experience. But at volume, it's statistical. So some people are statistically just not going to have a good time. Something's going to happen. There's too many variables, right? So you can't control it and you have to accept that.
So true.
But I think, piggybacking off what you said about the marriage of those two industries, hospitality and real estate, is that we started to turn our focus towards the owners, the people in real estate who are utilizing their spaces better, and not only for a profit but also for the service. We have clients who are like they're not in it for necessarily for a profit. Of course they want to cover their costs, but they're also thinking to themselves like, wow, I'm glad my house is being used, right? And so for us to come in and be able to take that off their plate and kind of facilitate that whole experience is a real pleasure and real honor.
And it gives the ability to have that more meaning, right? Because usually what happens is you still want to provide, you still want to give, but the owner then has an element of stress then, because they've got to do this and they've got to do that, where you guys can come in like, we'll take the stress away, stress free. And you just have the opportunity then to give back and have more meaning and more purposeful life, really.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, our solution that we come in, it's a hands-off solution. So they get to focus on really what matters most to them while, like you said, creating a meaningful impact.
Love it. Love it. So let's talk about what's happened over recently with this worldwide event that we've all experienced.
Events, plural, yeah.
Mate, it's been crazy, right? And obviously being over in the States, you would have seen a whole different set of lenses. How have you navigated through these times with your business?
For me, this has been a transition for everyone. I think no matter where you're at. And for me, it's really about helping me pull through these times is looking at the story that I'm telling myself and that I'm investing in, the story, the narrative that people are telling, and really questioning that, really kind of getting down to the bottom of what kind of life do we want to live? What kind of world do we want to create? Right. And I think that, particularly the pandemic that everybody kind of found themselves in all of a sudden is symptomatic. It's not the root cause. You can't just slap a Band-Aid on it when you need surgery, right? I think we need this sort of surgery that makes us turn the focus inwards and puts the power back in us. We have the power to make these choices about how we want to live, how we want to govern ourselves and our systems. And I think changing the narrative from something that's out of our control and us counting on somebody else to save us and change something for us, making that really about us and taking that, that responsibility on myself, right? Turning inwards and saying, look, we can't count on other people to come fix our problems. We are an inherent part of the problem, and we have to be a part of the solution. And that's in every respect.
So true. And looking back over the last, whatever the time period is, it's been an interesting, and you said, there's been a lot of questions, right? A lot of questions on self, a lot of questions on industry, a lot of questions on government. And, I'm always a big believer of question everything, and what is my own truth? What is the truth that I want to have out in the world in relations to my own journey? And as you said it beautifully, it's like looking inward and what type of life that we want to create. And I think that's a huge impact and a huge point that we can all take away and start to question, who do we want to become more of? What's that journey that we want to go on ourselves, and how can we be that self-sufficient to take on that path and not being so reliant on so many external factors and having that reliance on that internal factor. So love that point. Love that point. What did you notice about other business out there in the industry through these times with your lenses, with what you noticed out there? What were you noticing, and how were other businesses responding to this pandemic? Do you notice?
Yeah. A couple of things come to mind when I first think about it. The first is kind of um, how different businesses and leaders react to the situation, um, or respond, right? There's people, like I said, there's this wide spectrum of, on one hand, businesses are giving up and saying, throwing their hands up in the air. Oh, well, business is closed. Government says so. Guess we got to wait on
it. That's right.
Right? Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
going
Exactly.
fishing.
Yeah. We'll see what happens in a month. Right. And then on the other side of the spectrum, it's, the worldwide leaders who are like kind of stepping up and saying, this isn't a time for throwing your hands up. This is a time for doing something and for speaking up and for changing what we thought we knew. Right. So gauging those different levels of responses is one thing. And the second is really like, of the people who are doing something about it, and I guess for everyone really, is, the choices that we made before is coming back to either bite us or not, right? So when this thing blows up and kind of the whole world stops, some business have to throw themselves out because they can't handle the pressure. They can't carry the burden because of the choices that they made prior to all this happening. For one example, a certain type of business model in the property management, especially in the Airbnb space for short-term rentals, is the arbitrage model. And people would, they take on these big master leases, and they have 5 complexes or 5 units, and they're saying, oh, well, all of these units are going to make money. They're highly over leveraged, right? And so the pandemic comes, travel stops. They don't have any money to back that up. It was kind of like they were middlemaning, but without too much substance. And not to downplay their role, because they're facilitating the sharing economy, and I think that serves a great purpose. But to look at those choices and see, okay, you can be someone who kind of steps up. And I've known some of these people, these hosts, who have this kind of business model, and they were calling placement companies and nursing homes, facilities, hospitals, all these places, filling their homes, offering a hand. How can we help? How can we work together? So it's kind of, all of that is, I see it as a big mirror, right? Like we make these choices, and all of a sudden, hey, look what's up. Surprise.
Let's have a look at that, shall we?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, really, people are getting this chance to look and see, what is it that I'm creating, and getting this opportunity to kind of step back, answer that question for themselves, and come back anew.
I love that analogy of really having a look in the mirror, because when I'm a believer of, we're creatures of habits, we're creatures of patterns, and we manifest things through our patterns and our behaviors. And so, these times is a great opportunity to have a look in that mirror and go, well, what are the patterns that I'm playing out? What are the aspects of myself personally, my aspects of my business that I'm just been doing, expecting a different result. And by these times, it's allowed us to have a look in that mirror. And some people, as you said, have really stepped up and gone, you know what, I need to create some change here. And some people have stepped aside and go, I'm tapped out, I'm done. I'll just wait until this is over. And it's a great analogy, is to stop and have a look. And, is this helping me, or is it hindering me right now? I want to find out, where do you feel the direction or the future, because of the shared economy, is going? Because we've had some huge opportunities and huge growth in the shared economy. Where do you see it going over the next little while to long term?
Sure. In terms of where the sharing economy is going, I think it can really only go one way. And I'm of the belief that all paths lead to the same place. The sharing economy is no different. I think industry-wise, I really like to try to keep up on the latest tech, what's new, and obviously it's really hard because there's so many
So
new things,
much.
but one person, one mentor of mine that I really look up to and follow a lot is Peter Diamandis, and he talks about the convergence of all these different technologies and business concepts, new ways of doing things. Like you said, this convergence of where all these things come together, what happens next. So in terms of the sharing economy, I think it's just one piece of the puzzle, but I can kind of dive into that little piece and where I think, the puck will be met. That's kind of the position that I'm trying to approach the future from, is where is this going and how can we position ourselves best to kind of prepare for that. And I think we're really looking at a change of ownership, what it means to own an asset, to use an asset. I think it's gonna, the technology available and the business models that we're coming up with is a completely new way of living. You're talking about habits and like doing, and I could not agree more that is action is a part of our life, so we can't escape that. But also when our action comes from an intense awareness of how we're being, that's when we start to find alignment. And I think at this turning point, this really is a turning point for everyone, is like, how can we align the things that we're doing with how we want to be as people, as nations, communities. And I think the sharing economy will be that change that catalyzes a shift between what it means to own something versus just needing something to be accessible for me when I need it, right? Like real estate, for example, is, do you technically need to own a second house? Not really. I mean, what you really want is a few things, right? It could be a few things depending on your goals. You want profit so you can spend that money on, your child's education or health, or, your own personal education and personal growth, right? So there's the profit. There's also that service part that we talked about. What's another reason? You want a vacation getaway, you want a second spot to kind of go, and maybe you're like Mark Twain and you need a cabin in the woods to go write and think clearly and get creative, right? Or maybe it's a beach house and you want to take your family out there, for Christmas. We all have our different reasons, but at the end of the day, the reason why the sharing economy exists and why it's growing so much is because we look at what we have and we realize, hey, we could be doing this better. We have this house, we could be using it better, right? It's sitting empty most of the time. We have, just in America alone, I mean, we have millions of vacant properties, and then we have millions of homeless people. We have lots and lots and lots of food waste, and coming from a background in restaurants, I know how much food gets wasted in the kitchen, commercially.
Yeah.
Just if you look at home, you see how much food you throw in the garbage. I mean, unless you're composting, and then you're kind of upcycling that. And so I think that's kind of where we change the focus from, hey, look, I don't really need to have to own this house. I just need to have access to it when I want it. Uber's like, I need to have access to transportation affordably, reliably, conveniently. I don't need to own a car, right? We're seeing car companies in the US start to offer subscription models. And I think with like Uber, Lyft, and like these scooter companies, we're seeing the micro mobility companies, these are all going to be part of the equation. And so that's kind of the sharing economy as it pertains to real estate. But there's like I said, it's just one piece of the puzzle.
And it's a real, I love that because it's a real paradigm shift, right? It's looking at, questioning, where does the concept of owning multiple properties come from? What does that thought process around having your, buying a house, having the white picket fence, blah, 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 blah. It's an ingrained belief that we have from where growing up as, little Johnny or little Joe, whatever it is. And it's ingrained in us. And it's like, oh, you got to get the next property. But what, as you said, what's that purpose? and shifting that internal belief and looking at, well, what's the outcome? What do you want to achieve from it? And who do you need to, what you said is, who do you need to be in order to achieve those outcomes? It puts a different lens on it, puts a different light to it of like, do I really need that? Or how is there other ways that could be structured to achieve the same outcome? And that's just fantastic. I love it. Love it. So where's the future for yourself and for the business? What do you see, what do you see the next 12 months look like for you guys?
Well, what I really want to focus on is building an avenue that we can contribute to changing the narrative. And like I said, it comes down to alignment, right? And right now we're in a tricky position as an industry with short-term rentals because travel's bouncing back. But is that a good thing? We don't know. We'll find out soon enough, right? I mean, at the time of this recording, we're in the fairly new stages, and yet we're still seeing signs of what some people might say is not really promising. It's like, is it a good decision? Who knows? We'll find out. And so we're kind of in this delicate balance of welcoming people into our homes, having the conversations with investors and real estate, just anyone in real estate, is what kind of strategy do we need to be considering on the other side? Because some people don't think we're really totally out of it yet. They don't think we're on the other side. And obviously you can't really time the market or really try to predict the future of what's going to happen, but you can kind of think of the different scenarios that could play out and prepare accordingly. So for us personally, we want to be a part of changing that narrative about ownership versus accessibility. And one way that we want to do that is to really try to increase yield management in terms of, that bigger conversation of, okay, how do we take all of these spaces that are not being used, especially in the commercial real estate industry? That's going to be a big opportunity right there, because businesses are not going to be able to stay there. So, these people are going to wonder, what am I going to do with this space? Right? I have payments to make too. It goes all the way up the chain. And so that's kind of where I think our focus wants to turn, is coming to people like this and saying, hey, we know what to do with your space. Are you going to react? Or are you going to respond? Let's work together. Let's figure out a strategy. Sharing economy is not going anywhere. Real estate is not going anywhere. And so these things are here to stay, and it's just changing the conversation around all of that.
Fantastic. I see definitely as we come out through the other side of these times, businesses are questioning themselves. Do we need all this commercial space? They've had people working from home. We've had people, out of the office for months now. And, I've got a couple of clients really rethinking their whole commercial strategy. Do we really need this space, multiple spaces, or can we do things a little bit differently? That's a win-win for all. So it's an interesting conversation. And I think you hit the nail on the head, where it's looking at things a little bit differently. Like, how can we work together? How can the share economy and the real estate really focus on that cohesion and that collective thinking of, right, what's a win-win scenario here? And it's going to be interesting times, I think. Interesting times.
Definitely.
So how can the audience find out more about yourself, more about your journey, and more about the business?
Yeah, savvyspaces.co. That's our page. Right now we have the website up, talking to the owners and saying, hey, look, let it, at the beginning of the conversation we had, let us take this stress off of you so you can worry about, making a bigger impact. What are your goals? Why are you investing? Why don't you put your focus there? It's that 80-20. Your 20% focus needs to be on 80% of what's going to make an impact in your life and what's going to be meaningful for you. And most people in that position don't want to be taking care of their properties and answering phone calls at the middle of the night and calling the plumber and scheduling the house cleaners. So that's kind of where we come in, take it off your plate. And so I would say, head over to the website and reach out. Let's see how we can help you out. Let's create a win-win strategy. And make it a better world for everyone.
Fantastic. Michael, really appreciate your time. We could be talking hours on so many different topics here, dude. It's so good. It's so good. Mate, really appreciate it. And stay safe, stay healthy, and looking forward to chatting to you soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, talk to you soon. Stay safe.
Thanks, guys. Bye for now.